you learn things at work. You know, it's kind of funny. You'll do stuff and it'll work for a while, but then everybody gets wise to what you're doing, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And so now you got to figure out something else, or you'll start rolling with higher level people who are just better, and they're just beating you up. And now you got to think, okay, how do I adapt? How do I change? And so that whole mindset is, you can apply that in business as well.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Relentless Project. I'm your host, Ish Lopez, and I'm here with Patrick Cranston.
Yep.
And before I go on, everyone's probably like, who's the douchebag with the sunglasses? I got to address it. I'm not those guys. I just have an eye thing going on, and
it's nasty looking.
Yeah,
you want the glasses on.
He don't want to see that all day. So I get bad styes, and this one got the better of me. So that's why I got sunglasses on. It's not because I'm being a douchebag. Well, back to Patrick. What's up, man? Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Glad to be here.
So, few things you've done in your life. You're a little kind of seasoned vet, if you will, with
exactly
entrepreneurship. And one thing I wanted to get into is I like to kind of learn the person before we get into everything, because that kind of creates that buy-in, right?
Sure.
Of why am I listening to these two dudes?
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
So you come from growing up, you had a small business. Your family had a small business. You kind of
my dad
involved in.
My grandfather, along with my father, they started for lack of a better word, an industrial sales business. So always selling a variety. I think originally, like back in the 60s, they were selling chemical paint additives, but then that quickly turned into like shelving and storage products and material handling type products. And so my father and my grandfather started that business. My oldest brother, who's 14 years older than me, he joined that business out of college, and my sister worked in it for a period of time. When I was in college and then out of college, I worked in the business for a period of time, and my brother still runs that business today. And amazingly, my father, who's almost 90 years old, he still does sales for the company out there making real sales, doing real work.
Does he know there's this thing, especially in the U.S. called retirement?
Yeah, no, he does not. He does not know that. We discussed it occasionally with him, and he is anti-retirement.
Well, that goes to show you that, honestly, and there's people who are 30 who don't want to work.
Right. Oh yeah.
And there's people, like that, who's still doing it, but also there's that this is my baby, my business. To leave that is tough. When did he start that? Was that something that when you were a child you kind of came into? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it was already the business. Like I said, I'm the youngest of 5, and so I'm 8 years behind my next oldest sibling. So I was kind of the surprise at the end of the road there, and the business was always there, and it was operated at the time when I was young. We had our house, and then right next to our house was another house. That was my grandfather's house, and that was converted into had been my grandfather's house, and my grandfather passed away, and then my dad ran the business out of that house. So the business was always there. I'd go down there in the evenings and mess around on the computers, and as the computers were becoming more popular, and and I was always doing small tasks I remember they used to hand out literature, and we had to stick a label that had the Cranston Material Handling name on it. And so I had to go down and stick, I don't know how many labels I stuck on brochures, thousands over my lifetime. And of course, my dad, had to be straight. And if you did it, as a kid, you're sticking on hundreds of labels. They weren't lazy. They weren't all straight.
Yeah, you get lazy.
And you'd hear about it. You'd get.
That's so cool to me. I've always business. I've always been a business-minded individual, and when I meet someone who is not like that, it's almost it blows my mind. Yeah. And I'm like, how can you not want to do something for yourself? But there's people out there who don't, that's not for them,
Oh, for sure.
Which is understandable. Do you think growing up in that family business, is that something that shaped your entrepreneurial spirit, or is that just something you felt you always had? Like, how does that work for someone like you? Because I never grew up in a small business. I just woke up one day and I'm like, I fucking hate working for people.
Yeah. It was cool growing up in a small business. As a kid, like I said, you had some of the menial tasks that you were forced to do. But as we got older, the opportunity was always there. If we wanted to come work in the business, it was there, but it was never like an expectation. But I do think it's kind of built into into my DNA and my brothers and my sisters' DNA that we're very business minded, entrepreneurial minded, just because we grew up in that, and that was all we knew. And I did as I progressed, and I went to college. I was going to be a teacher, I thought, and then I went, and they should really do the student teaching like the first year you're there. Except they do it like when you're a senior. You go do your student
do everything
teaching.
and then they put you in there.
And I went into student teaching, and I was just like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. I didn't mind the actual teaching part. I didn't mind, but the regimented schedule, and like.
Why do you think they do that? Why do you think they put it at the end?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
you're stuck now.
Exactly. You're stuck. Except I wasn't. I was like, I'm out.
Hey, that takes a lot. That takes a lot to be like, I went through all this. I don't like it. Goodbye.
Yeah. And so my mother wasn't real happy at the time, but it worked out. So and then I actually went, and I went and worked for my dad in sales in the company. Did that for a few years, and it was funny. I really liked working with my brother, like working with my dad, but it was, I did get kind of bored with just the sales part of it. And I was looking at, at that time I was in my early 20s, so I was looking for a challenge, and I started another business doing actually video production and some web design stuff. Yeah, back when
welcome to my world.
This was a long time. This was when the world was going from analog to digital. So
that's a little before my time.
Yeah, exactly. I had a foot in both worlds there, and that didn't work out. And so then I went and worked for Apple. And once again, going to Apple, it was kind of crazy because this is early 2000s. So this is pre-iPhone and everything. The new Steve Jobs had just gotten back to Apple, and the iMacs were the rage. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to be working at like this cutting edge company. And, so I get in, and I was working on when they opened up retail stores here in Pittsburgh. I helped them open up retail stores, and I was working on the tech side. And I quickly learned it's a giant corporation that moves at the
massive.
Moves at the speed of dirt, and it just doesn't. And so I was there not even, I think, 2 years, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to last here long term either. So then I went and left and started the Cranston IT, which was at the time just me, just a sole consultancy helping people with their computers. And it was funny because I quit on.
What's an email? Can you show me what an email is?
Exactly. And I left on my birthday. It was my last day at Apple. Was my birthday, 2005. And my business plan was that I'm no longer doing this for Apple. So that was.
Oh, so you were doing like IT stuff for Apple?
Yeah, right. I was working on the tech side, doing their working in their what they called they called us geniuses. I don't know I think they still call them geniuses, but. And we worked at the Genius Bar, and which was,
why they can't call them genius?
Because they're not.
Well,
I wasn't.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. No. I like to make friends, not enemies. No, because I think Google just released their AI thing. Isn't it Genie or Genius? So there's no way Apple would do that now. Because they're like, nope.
Right,
Google's using that. There's no way. It's so funny how these tech companies work.
Yeah. So I was like, so and being called a genius though was the worst because customers had no problem throwing that in your face as soon as you got up there and like you didn't know the answer. Oh, I thought you were the genius. I'm like, yeah, thanks. That's
a term.
Yeah, right.
Marketing term.
Yeah, right. So we were techs and so I left and so I but it was good because I learned in those 2 years a lot about the Mac operating system and the hardware and all that.
Which I love.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I still like Macs. I mean. We do a lot of support for both Mac and Windows these days, but my preferred choice is still Mac. I love them.
Why? Let's talk to a genius. I did it.
Yeah.
No, but like I have this conversation too, and like the iPhone, although I love the platform, the simplicity, it's gotten like when people are like, "Did you get the new iPhone?" I'm like, "It's no different than the last one,
right.
just better battery." Like, I end up buying it because I feel quote unquote that I have to, because it integrates with my laptop, and that integrates with my phone, and my phone integrates with my. So I've created this like spider web of things that just go together.
Yeah. Well, Apple has created that for you.
For me. And then I've allowed it to infiltrate my life. So like I can be doing something on my phone and pick it up on my laptop. And then they've made it very easy for you to get in and very hard for you to get out, which is genius.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't knock it.
And I would agree with that. I would say years ago, the Apple operating system, I do feel was better than Windows. Just the way it operated and the way it worked, and fewer bugs. And now I will say, Windows has greatly improved that. But where Apple has kind of gone past that is that interconnectivity between all your devices. It's just so nice. You pick up a pair of AirPods and you have them in your ears, and you're listening to something on your computer, your phone rings, the AirPods automatically switch over and answer on your phone, and it's just those, and there's all kinds of things like that. It's Apple's by no means perfect. I have my gripes with it, but it's just as an operating system and as an ecosystem now, definitely I prefer that over say Android or Windows.
I think I used the Android I think it was like in high school. And I was like, I'm gonna switch phones. I like new things, right? I go to an Android and it's like lag, and this was a long time ago before I get. You know what happens with this? People are gonna fucking come crush me because they think I'm anti-Android. But it was like lagging and freezing, and I was so miserable that I went immediately back to Apple, and I've been an Apple person ever since. I know things have changed. I know they're very pioneering and whatever, but go fuck yourself. It's my podcast. So you worked for Apple. You leave on your birthday. You start Cranston IT.
Yes, correct.
And what was your goal for that? Was it just like, I'm already doing this, let me do it for myself? Or
my goal for that was just to get back and do work for myself, because once again I tried working they weren't the biggest company in the world at that time, but they were still a very large company, and I realized that just wasn't for me. And so I just wanted to get back to something where I could work for myself. And that was the opportunity that was in front of me. And it's kind of funny because I always tell people I'm probably the biggest non-tech person that's working in tech, because I enjoy the tech, but I don't even consider myself like a tech nerd, although I work with them all the time, and I got a lot of great ones working for me.
Do you have a geek squad?
It's right.
Best Buys.
Yeah, exactly. So we have but because I really enjoy the business side of things, and tech was just an opportunity that I had where I could do the business stuff, and so that was, I left, and really, I always wanted to grow the company, and get, beyond myself, and really in the IT world, there's what's called MS. There's consultants who are kind of independent people who just go around and help. And then once you get a group of consultants working together, you become what's known as a managed service provider, where like we have now on our team, Marshall, who does like just networking, and Dean, who's focusing on security. And, so they're you get like specialization in you guys, and together you can provide a much better product than, a single person trying to know all of it. And so I always wanted to get at that point, but it's very hard to, go from it's pretty easy to become a single consultant and kind of just do your consulting stuff, but it's hard to bring that business part to it to where you can grow the business and
scale
it while and stay profitable and all that. So that was the long-term goal. Even when I started, though, is I wanted to get there. I didn't want to be just you can make good money just being a consultant. I know a lot of guys who do that, and that's just what they do. They're kind of, they're a one-man band. They've got their niche that they're working in, and it works for them. But that wasn't what my plan was.
Yeah, I like to put the wagon before the horse. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
Where like, with the podcast, I kind of envision like where I want it to be.
Sure.
And I'm like, how the hell do I get there? Because like what I envision is so But you know, it's crazy. I never thought I'd be in a studio.
Yeah.
I was like, I always thought I'd be traveling to people's places or like having my real estate office be. And then this opportunity presented itself. I was like, I got my own studio now. So I'm like, where I thought I'd be and where I'm going. Like, it's funny how all that kind of, it's so organic. It just happens sometimes.
Oh yeah, and I think that's part of being an entrepreneur is that being able to that innovation and adaptability. You have to be able to innovate. You have to be able to adapt. And I mean, yeah, it's while this was generally the goal, where I am today. I mean, just even in the IT, where I've been doing the IT stuff for 19 years now, and I mean, we do IT completely differently today than we did 19 years ago for sure, and even 5 years ago, and probably another 5 years we'll be doing things differently again. So you can't ever sit back and just say, well, this is how I'm doing it, and this is the only way we're going to do it, because it's certainly going to change on you.
What's one of the main things you see in the IT world that you deal with? Like you know how like Apple's is the iPhone, that's their bread and butter. Like, what is in the IT world? What's the thing you find yourself dealing with the most?
Currently, it's all security stuff.
Okay.
I mean, it's amazing how much better the hardware has gotten over the last 10 years. We used to do a lot of like hard drive replacements and screen replacements, and quite honestly, the computers are much better made than they were 5-10 years ago. But the security side, I mean, we're constantly dealing with security, especially as everything's gone online. And gone to the cloud. I mean, the cloud is really just a big data center full of other people's computers that your stuff is running on.
Blows my mind.
But with every, there's downsides to everything. And when you consolidate all that information in one place, it just becomes a bigger target for hackers. And so the hackers have gotten very good at, targeting individuals for individual account takeover. And they used to come in and they would hack your account, and then they'd immediately start sending out like 20,000 spam emails or, locking down your account so you couldn't get in, and you would know about it. So it's like, oh, my account's been hacked. What we're seeing now is that the hackers have gotten a lot more sophisticated. They'll compromise your account and they won't change anything, and except maybe a couple things on the back end where they can start reading your emails, and they're looking for primarily like banking information, wire transfers, things. But then they'll even watch though for some. We've had incidents where they get into the emails and they start watching who you're communicating with, and maybe your clients or your vendors could go either upstream or downstream, and then they'll set up rules so that they're able to send out emails to them. And when that person responds back to the email, it routes to them, and you never see the email. And so they'll say they'll figure out you're wire transferring money to one of your vendors, and they'll send them a thing and say, hey, you're accepting, let's say you're accepting money from one of your clients, and they'll say, hey, we changed our bank information. You need to wire the money here. And
we see that in policing all the time. Like literally yesterday, someone came in because he sold medical equipment to this company. This company comes, picks it up, sends them the down payment. Once it's installed, they get the rest of the money. Well, they end up returning it, and he's like, hey, I'd like the money back. So he returns the equipment, and they're communicating via email. Now he's seen this person in real life. Now they're communicating via email, which they have been communicating. Well, somewhere in the email chain, someone came in and diverted the conversation.
Yep.
He ends up sending the reimbursement for the deposit. Everything's fine, right? He's like, actually, we're going to send it to this account. Everything's fine. And then like a week later, the dude's like, hey, are you ever going to send me the money back? And he's like, oh, I did send it to you. He's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. And
he's like, I have emails here. And he shows him, dude's like, we did not communicate. That is not me. And then he finds out they sent that it was an email, but they changed like one character in the email.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they'll change it. They'll set up a spoof domain.
Dude, it blows my mind. Or with real estate transactions, 'cause I'm also in real estate, they'll change like the wire information, and we always give people a sheet that says like a hard copy. This is the wire information. It will not change. If for whatever reason you believe it's going to change, call our office directly. Yeah. How many times you see people get the email? Oh, well, you said the wire was changed. No, we literally told you we'll never change.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, it happened. We see it all the time. So that I would say that's our biggest thing. And now we have tools in place where we can basically we can do 24/7 monitoring of your cloud environment, so that if your account gets hacked, then you'll start seeing weird things happening on the back end. Like if you're looking at the log files and monitoring it, you'll see that, oh, this person always logs in from Pittsburgh. Now all of a sudden they logged in from South Korea. That's
okay.
and so there's clues like, or all of a sudden a bunch of redirect rules get set up on the back end that you don't see, but the log, gets logged. So we have security monitoring tools that alert us to that. And then we are reaching out and saying, hey, did you make this change? Or, if you didn't, there's even, the multi-factor authentication is one of the big ways you can protect yourself, but there's even ways to hack that. And if you fall to a phishing attack and you put in your multi-factor code, once they get that, they can steal that code from you and use it for a very short period of time as well, like 15 or 20 seconds. But if they hit it and get that, they're in as well, and then they can set up their own multi-factor authentication on your account.
Kind of log you out, which you see a lot on Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know why. There's this business, and I was actually watching a podcast. It's like one of those brain rot podcasts. Yeah. But, it's like junk food. You got to have a little bit at a time. Yeah. I'm watching, and this guy's gloating about how, like, he has a business where he goes into people's Instagrams, hijacks it, and then charges people to get their Instagram back. Yeah. And that's one of the things they do. They go in, change your password, change your two-factor authentication, and then they lock you out. And they're like, "What are you willing to pay for your account?" Yeah, right. Which, like, if you take my account, they say, "Keep it, bro. I'll start another one."
Well, for them, it's all numbers game. It's
someone has millions of followers or hundreds of thousands, and they make their living on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. Like, probably would pay some money. And he was saying, she charges people thousands of dollars to get their own account back. Yeah. That would piss me off.
Yeah, and there's really, when trying to deal with like the big tech companies, like there's no way for you to, unless you're somebody that's very, very well known, there's no way for you to go to Instagram and be like, hey, this was my account. I need you to get me back in. That's
where egos get checked, because you're like, oh, I'm a blue check mark. I'm like, who are you? You pay for it. We don't know who you are. It's like, damn. So. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And then back to like your I call it grinding, the hustling, right? Like you were selling candy in school. I was reading what you were putting in. I used to do that too. I used to break up like candy, actual candy. Yeah. People were going to be like, hey, I know what you used to do. No, I didn't. But like Skittles, I'd put like 10 Skittles in a bag and like, hey, 25 cents, which now with inflation, probably $1 a bag, because things are getting crazy. But I used to do that too. Yeah. But it was more of like to pay for my lunch. Yeah. I was like, this is cool.
As growing up in the school as fundraisers, they don't seem to do this kind of fundraiser much anymore. But as a kid, it was like you'd go around and like knock on all your neighbors' doors, and sell like
chocolates,
Christmas candy, and like you do it to raise money for something at the school. But then they had like the best salesperson would, whoever sold the most would get prizes and stuff. And as a kid, I was always crushing those. We had like this big townhome community that was a couple miles away from us. My mom used to take me there on a Saturday morning at like 10 o'clock. And of course, this was in the 80s, so there's no cell phones or anything like that. And she'd drop me off at the front of this community, and she'd be like, all right, I'll be back around 2, pick you up. And I'd just go and just knock on doors and I'd sell candy.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah. But I loved it. It wasn't like I was like asking her to, to take me over there and do it. And then if I got done early, I'd just ask. It's crazy. I'd just ask them. I'd knock on someone's door and I'd be like, hey, can I use your phone? I need to call my mom.
And they're probably like, yeah, come on in.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Now you're like calling the police immediately. There's a child on my door.
Oh, yeah. You could never get away with it.
Different times. I grew up at such a perfect time, I feel like. Or maybe it was just my upbringing, because I feel like I grew up with that, but like also the new generation, right? Like I was here before Google and after Google. I was here during dial-up and then high-speed internet. Like I feel like I was in that perfect realm of like as a child, which no other generation will ever like understand, because people before me, they grew up
without that
in the snail times. No. Scott Bartlett. No. But and then the people like these kids now, they just have no idea. Like everything's so instant gratification. But like I grew up like playing outside. Yeah. You knew where the kids were because all the bikes were outside. Like that's how you knew where everyone was at. Like now you're just like texting where you at. Oh yeah. All right, I'm getting a ride over. Like kids are Ubering now. Like
that's great. Yeah, it's like I know where my kids are, and I have 2 daughters, and I know where they are at all times now. And it's crazy because it doesn't even bother them that I know where they are at all times. They're just so used to it. And I think about that, like, dude, especially once I was a teenager, man. Like my parents never knew where I was, and
dude, same.
If I knew they knew where I was, I would not have been happy about it. But
I probably wouldn't be there because my mom would beat the brakes out of me. Like she's a little short Puerto Rican woman. You don't piss her off. Like even now, right? Yeah. I'm 230 pounds. I fight. I train jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Shout out Stout. And my mom will still be like, oh, well, you think because you're a cop? You think because you train? I'm like, Mom, I will murder you if we fought. Do it. Come here, do it. I'm like, wow, I was kidding. Like, please don't beat me up. Please don't beat me up. Like, still strikes fear in me. I'm a grown ass man. You shouldn't be scaring me, Mom. But times are so different. So my ADHD went off. Oh, so. You actually started other businesses too, the paintball stuff. Yeah. How does that come about? That's so niche.
Yeah. So I played paint. You know, I grew up once again in the late 80s, early 90s. Paintball was really taking off, and so I started playing it as a teenager. And then I went to college, and it was kind of funny. I was real into it, and I went to college, and I showed up at the college, and there was nowhere to play anywhere around, and I was like. And so this is where that serial entrepreneur is. It's like, oh, well, there's an opportunity here. And I've got a college full of guys that are all like my age who would love to play paintball and nowhere to go. Well, right next door to our college was a summer camp, just like a normal youth camp. And I think it was a church camp. And so, but they weren't doing anything with that property like the whole time we're there. Like right when we're coming in for college, they're shutting down for the winter, and they pretty much, and then they start up in the spring again. So I went over there and met with the camp director, and I was like, because they had all this land, I was like, hey, I got a deal for you. I'll build you a paintball field, and I'll help you get all the. I was like, I'll buy the equipment, and you can let me use it during the fall and spring, and then all summer long you can use it. And of course they were like, well, yeah, first they thought I was crazy. They were like you'd really just like put this whole thing together? I'm like, yeah, why not? I was like, it works.
Got a plan.
I got a plan. And so they gave me the go ahead for that. And so that's what we did. And literally it was, you could walk to it from the guys' dorms were on the one side of the college. It was college I went to, the guys and girls, the dorms were separate. So the guys' dorms were butted up right against the camp. So you could literally walk to the paintball field. And so I had a built-in clientele that was always looking for something to do on the weekends. And then it even kind of took off. We'd have other groups in the area found, kind of heard about us having this paintball field. So we have groups come in and, do things. We'd go out in the community and, do some advertising stuff. And so it just kind of grew into this thing that I ran while I was in college and helped pay the bills while I was in college. And then when I, then when I left, it was like, okay, here, and I just kind of handed it all over to the camp. I was like, especially because I kind of ended college abruptly because I decided, teaching's not for me.
Teaching who? No.
Yeah, I'm done with college. I was like, there you go. So, but it kind of shows too. It was a lesson I learned there because I came back to Pittsburgh. I was like, well, I'm going to start a paintball field here in Pittsburgh because I've already done it. Well, paintball, like everything, changes, and what worked up there in that environment was very different back here in Pittsburgh. I opened up a field here in Pittsburgh, and I operated it for probably 4 or 5 years, and it just never
4 or 5 years. That's a long time to just be trying something.
Yeah. And so it was, and then towards the end of that, I got married, and my wife wasn't real thrilled about the fact that like every weekend, because I was still working at that point too. I was kind of doing both, working for my dad's company, and then I was also doing the paintball stuff on the weekends, which wasn't my wife wasn't real thrilled about that. So then we just kind of shut it down here, and shut it down in Pittsburgh. But yeah, that was how I got into the paintball business, and did that for a while. So.
And what did you learn in the? You said you started it and it was different and it, quote unquote failed. Which
sure. No,
I think failure. I mean, you're learning stuff from what you're doing, which is cool. Especially as someone, and this is what I try to tell people: like if they're entrepreneurs, right? You have one thing, and that's everything. There's people in corporate America, which a lot of the people I tend to have on here tend to be entrepreneur minded, but there's nothing wrong with corporate America if that's what you want to do. Like the whole premise of this podcast is finding your passion and just fucking hitting it, running, boots on the ground. If that's whatever it may be. But people like who are serial entrepreneurs, which I just learned this word and I love it because it applies to me. It's like every time I look at something, I'm like, that could be. There's an opportunity here. Yeah. There's an opportunity here. There is no losing. You can't lose unless you just decide to stop one day.
Right. Unless you quit.
That's the only time you lose, because you've done all this progress just to be like, psych, and throw it away. So I never feel like something is a failure, just a different opportunity. What did you learn in starting these fields, and then seeing they're not as lucrative as you maybe wanted it to be? What did you learn from that, pushing forward into your next endeavor?
Yeah, so I learned that you're not guaranteed success. Just because something worked once and worked in one situation doesn't mean it's gonna work again. And I've learned, you learn that lesson over and over again. And so that comes back to that innovation and adapt, being able to innovate and adapt. You always have to be saying, okay, and it comes back to ego, because it's like hey, this worked for me. I know what I'm doing. I don't got to learn anything new. I'm just going to do what I know how to do. But if it isn't working, it's not working. So you
see a lot of that in business.
Yeah. And business and personal life. I mean, it's something that may have worked great for a period of time no longer works, but our human nature is, well, it worked before. I'm just going to,
repeat and do it again.
Repeat it again. And it's even harder when you're the one that came up with the idea that worked the first time. And now you've got to admit that my great idea ain't a great idea anymore. Yeah.
Maybe it was like luck of the draw, or just circumstantial, or. Yeah. Now, you ever read the book? Are you a reader?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever read the book Winning by Tim S. Grover?
Not read that one. No.
Man, he talks about winning. If you want to, Tim S. Grover in my mind is the what's his name? The dude who's like, I'll carry the boats, the runner. Completely skipping my mind.
Yeah, the former Navy SEAL guy.
Yeah, feels like three different.
Not Grove.
Literally, people are going to listen to this podcast. So
I know who you're talking about.
It's bright. It's early. We're here early in the morning or getting after it. But he's very extreme, right? Tim S. Grover is like that extreme in my mind with like success and winning. Yeah. I believe he was like a trainer or something like that for like Michael Jordan and Kobe. And he talks about, like, in this book, what winning means.
Sure.
And there's a chapter where he goes on a rant of basically how winning is like this jealous lover who doesn't want your attention anywhere else, but when you get it, it doesn't want you anymore, and you have to. It basically talks about like winning is never, like, you never get winning. You never, like, it's never yours. Yep. You have it momentarily, and then boom, it's gone, and you have to earn it again.
Sure.
It's like an uphill battle constantly, and then once you get it, pushes you down, because it's never permanent.
It's the journey. It's the old saying, it's the journey, not the destination. And, it was funny. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were kind of talking about that. And I was thinking with the struggle, there's always struggle, in life. But it's the struggle that makes you better. And you know, like it's like going, you know, it's like doing jiu-jitsu or going to the gym. You have that, you hit that struggle there. But if you went there and it was easy, you wouldn't get any benefit out of it. Well, business is the same way. Life is the same way. If you're not struggling, you're living too much in a comfort zone and you're not getting any benefit out of it.
Yeah, comfort and growth, they don't live in the same room. They hate each other. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. If you're growing, you're not comfortable. Like gym, I love to lift. If I went to the gym and put 20-pound dumbbells on and did 5 reps and like I didn't hurt, no burn, no pain, no anything, I'm not getting anything from that.
Right. Yeah.
I leave and I'm like, oh, I worked out today. I did the movements. I did the motions. I went to the place. But like you didn't do the work. Same with jiu-jitsu. If I went and, which it's going to be ironic me saying this, I just got knee surgery. So this is exactly what I'm going to do to get back. But if I went to jiu-jitsu and did fundamentals and did the techniques and then come live roll, I'm like, later guys, I'm heading out. Like, are you learning something? Sure, you're going over technique, but like you're not really applying and pushing yourself.
No, yeah, you don't realize what it is until you go one-on-one with someone
who's resisting you.
Yeah,
and that's life. When I talk to people and they're like, "Man, my life is so hard right now," I understand. Like, yeah, it sucks. Like life can be tough sometimes, tougher than sometimes more than others. But then they constantly some people are just like, "Oh man, like it's just struggle after struggle after struggle." I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing about it?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because everyone is going to experience struggle. That's how you grow. That's how you push through. That's how you get better. Like life doesn't get easier. You just get better equipped to deal with life. Yeah. The more struggle you go through. Would you rather struggle now and live a better life later? Or would you rather be in comfort now and then struggle later?
Right. And I feel like too, it's once you embrace the struggle, you realize that the struggle is better than the comfort anyways, at least for me. You know, I feel more alive when there's challenges that I'm actively working on. And the times that I kind of feel down are those times when I'm just not
getting by.
Yeah, just getting by and just
I'm the same way.
Living comfortable.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I need to be working on something because that tells me I'm pushing myself. I'm working towards something. There's meaning. There's something to look forward to. When you feel there's nothing to look forward to, what are you pushing for? What are you struggling for? That's when I feel you start to get into the anxiety and the depression. It's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Like
when you have no goals, you have no ambition, you have no line of sight, nowhere to go. All that builds up because you're struggling, but there's nothing to push the struggle towards.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's like, I'm just here. But when you have something like a goal or a business or a family or whatever, all your struggle's worth it because you're like, I'm coming out on the end better.
Yeah.
For this reason. But when you don't have that, and that's why it's so important to find your purpose in life.
Well, right. And you go back, you were talking about, how I feel I'm the same way, all with that serial entrepreneur, always having to have a business. I'll have people ask me, like, well, how do you get into doing a business, or should I start my own business? I've been thinking about starting my own business. And I always tell people, I say, hey, only start your own business if you have absolutely no other option. Because if you're happy going to work for someone else and you've got a good working situation, then that's probably, that may be good for you. But in order for a business to work and really take off, you have to have that feeling inside that if I don't do this,
do or die.
Yeah, I will not be happy unless I do this. And
if you don't have that safety net that's going to catch you, if you jump off and you are forced to build a parachute on the way down, like exactly. I think those type of people are the ones who make the best entrepreneurs because your mind is always going, you're always improvising, adapting, overcoming. But if you have a safety net, and you jump, anything to happen, you're good, right?
Yeah,
like
you're
fine.
Gonna go back
you're gonna go climb again.
Inevitably, you're gonna have that problem, and you're gonna bail. And and that's why it's kind of interesting because a lot of people, some people are able to do side hustles very successfully, but I see a lot of people that are always kind of like, oh, I'm gonna start this, but they only kind of do it halfway. And then you talk to them 6 months later and they're like, oh yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. You know, like that was something I looked at that and I'm not doing that anymore.
Kills me. That kills me, especially this is a little different, but with jiu-jitsu. You get people who come in, they're fired up, which everyone who tries jiu-jitsu, they're fired up. In the beginning, everyone is.
Yeah.
But then, like, the fire goes. You're like, wow, dude, you were so good. Like, I can think of someone, and I won't say his name out of respect because I don't know what the situation is. Young kid, stout, fucking tapping black belts, competing, going different places, and then just fucking haven't seen him. Haven't heard from him. Like, breaks my heart because I'm like, dude, there's so much. And maybe that's not something he wants to do anymore. But I'm like, dude, you had jiu-jitsu by the balls, no pun intended.
Yeah, right.
And you just like now it's just whatever about it. It's like it sucks because that's. But here's the thing, I'm projecting too because that's what I like.
Right. Yeah. You look at it, you want to
jiu-jitsu by the balls. I want to be that guy. So it's like when you see someone living in your what you want to be doing, and then they sidestep. Like it's like, why did you do that? But it's like we're projecting.
Yeah, and I think it's important to figure out, like, when you see that kind of situation, what are they doing now? Because, you know, looking back in my life, there's been times, like, especially like the whole teaching thing, like I invested a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort. But then I was like, okay, this isn't for me. But at the same time, where I learned from that is I knew what I wanted to do, and I was able to transition that and go into my next stage and not look back. But for a lot of people, it looked like a pretty quick, hard break, and I was just, you know, wasting, you know, I just flushed a lot of stuff down the toilet, you know, a lot of investment down the toilet and wasn't getting any return on it. But, you know, for me, that was the best decision, and it led me to where I am today. So
speaking of where you are today, you were over 300 pounds?
Yes. Yep. Over about, it's probably going on 8 or 9 years ago.
I just realized people listening to this are probably like, where the fuck did he segue to that from? Like, no, because we're getting into the jiu-jitsu and fitness and like pushing and like, when did you realize like something needs to be done? Because there's a lot of times people, and you don't have to be 300 pounds, but like I've been 230, 240, and like I should probably be a little more mindful of where I'm at, and I don't. So like what was that made you realize like something needs to change, or I want to do something different?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. I went to college. I had played soccer in high school and was active in college, obviously doing a lot of the paintball stuff. And but once I got, you know, somewhere in college, my body changed, my metabolism dropped off, and I just started putting on weight. And so it was like a slow growth through my 20s and 30s. And, you know, as I started the businesses, I was focusing on those. So I was doing like no exercise. And, you know, and it's kind of funny how your ability to lie to yourself is really powerful. And so, you know, for years I tell you, I'm not that fat. You know, I'm not that fat. You know, okay, I'm a little overweight, but I'm pretty, you know, I'm still pretty good. Yeah, I feel fine. I still look good. You know, it's like, and it's all BS. But, but, you know, it was that day. I remember I got to the point, you know, and you always know you're in trouble when you're avoiding doing something. So I was avoiding getting on like a scale. Like I just like wouldn't get on a scale. And I remember one day I got on the scale and it was over 300. It was like 303, 304, something like that. It was over 300 pounds. And it was just I was like, okay, this is, and fortunately, I had no health problems. You know, I wasn't doing, you know, nothing like that. But I just like, I've got to change. I've got, you know.
Seeing that number, what did seeing that number do to you? Like, what, was there something that hit you mentally, or were you like, was it later on when you were like, hold on?
No, I think it was just, I don't know, for some reason, I don't know why the 300 number was significant to me, but in my brain, it was a light that allowed me to realize that I was just lying to myself and that my weight wasn't going to fix itself, and it was a problem and I needed to look at it. And so then it was funny because I was like, okay, well, I got to start doing exercise. And, you know, you hear the thing and I was doing no exercise. So, I mean, I was like doing nothing. And I was like, I put on one of those little pedometers, just like the ones that you snap onto your belt,
I
you
used
know?
to use that.
Yeah. And so I put one of those on because I don't know, we had one sitting in a junk drawer. And so I put it on and I was like, I'm just going to see how many steps I'm taking a day because, you know, they say you should be doing 10,000 steps. And so put that on. And now at the time, my business, we all work in our business. We all work from home, work remotely. And so I don't even like go anywhere on a normal day unless I'm going to visit a client. So I put this on, sit down, work at my desk all day. I get done at the end of the day. I look at my pedometer. I'm like, okay, this thing must be broken. So I was like, I'm going to do it another day. I put it on, do it a second day. Same number. I was doing 700 steps a day when you're supposed to be doing 10,000. I mean, 700 steps, I'm like, I am literally not moving. Like,
yeah, you're about, like, your body's going to grow stiff, my guy.
Exactly. So then, you know, and so at that point, I was like, man, and so I was like, well, I just got to start walking. So I just started walking, and I would walk our front of our neighborhood and back is like a mile. So I would walk to the front of our neighborhood and back. And then just from there, I slowly built. I kind of got into biking. I did a bunch of biking. And I remember the first time I started biking, I bought a bike, and I would like I went to there's a road to the front of the neighborhood. There's a little community park, and they have this little hill in the back of the park. And I'd ride, and they had like a bike trail around the park. I got to the back of that hill. I couldn't even bike up. Like I had to push my bike up this hill. And like
I'll probably do that right now.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
and so then I went, you know, and once again, like any journey, there were ups and downs, you know, then I tried going on a real strict, like one of those like 1,200 calorie a day diets, and, you know, where you're eating like the pre-packaged little meals that they give you. And I was literally hungry for like 9 months or 6 months, and I lost a ton of weight. But the problem is after 6 months, I couldn't sustain it.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. When I tell people, like, if you're going to diet, like a diet is just being mindful of what you eat, changing behavior.
Yeah. Like
a diet is not, I'm going to cut 1,000 calories a day. It's like, that's not sustainable.
Yeah. And that's what happened to me. And then I did that, lost a bunch of weight, got down to probably about 235, 240. But then I immediately went back to eating all the junk that I had always eaten. And on top of it, I decided, because I was feeling pretty good, right? So this is all great. I went back to eating what I was doing, and I quit exercising.
Yeah, why don't I need exercise? I dropped the weight.
So then I went right back up. I mean, it was crazy. It was like 5 or 6 months. I was all the way back up to like 285. And I was like, what the?
You're asking how that happened. That's crazy. It is. We lie to ourselves.
Exactly.
But it's that comfort, right?
Right.
Like if I tell myself the truth, now I'm uncomfortable.
Exactly. So that's when I had to have another hard conversation with myself. And so I was like, okay, well, we're going to do this. I'm going to change it. And so that's when I radically changed my diet, because what I did learn through that process is that I need calories. Like I have to have calories, but I can survive without carbs and sugar. It's difficult, but as long as I have the calories, I'm fine.
Sugar is like, and that's the thing. People, we get this misnomer of like salt.
Yeah.
You know, salt leads to heart disease. And well, if we look at the studies like if you intake too much sodium, your body just pisses it out.
Right.
The sugar is the shit that like your body
stores for later.
It sucks in, and it's like, and it's so funny because the things in life that appear to be the best are the worst. Like you look at the poison frogs and stuff; they're always bright colors and come touch me. They'll kill you. Yeah. Sugar tastes so sweet that it'll kill you. Like sugar is horrible. Like Skittles used to be my favorite candy. Mm-hmm. I would suck down Skittles like nobody's business. And I'm like, dude, I did the math. I'm like, the amount of sugar I'm bringing in. Yeah. No wonder I have an inner tube around my waist.
Right.
And I just stopped eating Skittles. And that was literally my only sugar intake was Skittles. I'm not a sweets guy outside of that. I had to give up my Skittles, man. Can you believe that? Now I don't even. But that's the thing. Like, it's like an addiction. Like we people don't like to admit that, but eating sugar and bad food, it's an addiction.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I realized I had a bad relationship with food.
Yeah. So so I cut all that. So I went on a thing where basically what I would do is 6 days a week, no carbs, no sugars, lots of chicken, lots of meats, lots of fats, you know, 'cause I like meat, you know, and then on Sundays though, because I did have this thing where like, just mentally for me, if I was like, I'm never going to eat a donut again, the only thing I could focus on was when was the next time I was going to eat a damn donut. You know, it was like,
it's got a grip on you,
yeah.
man.
And so,
sugar.
so what I started doing is saying, okay, I'm only going to eat that stuff on Sundays, 1 day a week. And so I literally would keep a list throughout the week. If I had a craving for something, oh, I want a soft pretzel from Sheetz, I'd write that down. And then on Sunday, I would make sure I would go and eat a soft pretzel from Sheetz. And it got like there were Sundays where I'd hit Dunkin' Donuts, Sheetz, McDonald's, like all in one day. But then on Monday, I'm back to it. And what happened is over time, I was able to train myself is to put off those, like, because I could always say, oh, it's Wednesday, I'm craving. Yeah, I'm going to wait till Sunday. I can wait till Sunday. I would do that on Sunday. And, you know, and so, and I was real strict on that for about, you know, a year or more. And then I started going back and working out. And of course, you know, and this was all about the time this happened, COVID hit. So, you know, everything kind of got shut down, and that actually helped me because I was able to, you know, you weren't eating out as much. You were just, you know, at home a lot more. And so I was, you know, that's when I really lost the weight and was able to train myself. And now I kind of live a modified version of that. I'm not quite super strict on that, but generally speaking, if I'm at home during the week, I'm not eating carbs, not eating sugars. That's not to say, like, you know, like Tuesday night, my wife wanted to go out for dinner. So we went out and I just had, you know, a normal dinner. But then if I'm going to eat something, if I still get a craving, like, you know, I have a thing for Dunkin' Donuts. I love their donuts. So on Sundays,
everybody's vice.
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
has a vice.
So, but that to me, I will only go and get Dunkin' Donuts on Sunday. So, like, if I'm craving it, it's like Sunday morning, I'm headed to Dunkin' Donuts, get a couple donuts, and I'm good.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I just want to take a second to shout out a few companies who believed in me. You know, these were one of our first official sponsors, so huge shout out. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Carbo Jewelers, established in 1997 on the values of honesty and integrity. Whether you're searching for the perfect piece, need expert repair services, visit Carbo Jewelers in Newark's Ironbound District, where your jewelry is always in safe hands. This episode is also brought to you by Continental Jewelers, proudly serving Hudson County, New Jersey since 1964. Whether you're seeking a timeless piece or need expert repairs, they've got you covered. Visit Continental Jewelers, your trusted source for all things jewelry. You can find them on Instagram at Carbo Jewelers or online at carbojewelers.com. Lastly, big shout out to Carbo Trading. Besides coins, precious metals, and jewelry, if it could be traded and collected, he's probably got it. They can be found on Instagram at carbo.trading. You can find all of our sponsors out online on our sponsor page at therelentlessproject.com. Because that's an interesting thing. Yeah. You write it down and then put it off for Sunday. Yeah. Did you ever find yourself writing something down? Let's say it's Tuesday or Wednesday. Dunkin' Donut, powdered donut. Yeah. I'll put it off for Sunday. Come Sunday, you looking at your list and going, I don't really want that right now. Like, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Did you find yours? Because I feel like that'd be a good idea to, like, do you really want this? Is it worth it, right? Is it worth it? Put it off till Sunday.
Right.
If on Sunday you still want it, sure. But does it come, did you find yourself going, I don't even want that right now?
Yeah, no, it got to that point. And it was
so interesting.
But early on, it was funny because early on, I kind of flipped it and made sure that I ate it on Sunday to train myself. Like there was like, even if
like
I really
rewards kind of thing?
and I don't know, just for me, that's how it worked. Is like if I'd put it on the list, I made sure I went out and ate it on Sunday. And then what I found is I got to the point where like Monday and Tuesday, I'm like, okay, I ate way too much on Sunday. Like I'm not eating anything. Like and so then over time that gradually those cravings went away from me. But I did I used to tell people, and you know, it's like, my problem is like I eat when I'm sad, I eat when I'm happy, I eat when I want to celebrate, I eat when I'm busy.
That's our culture, right?
Yeah, right.
Like you get a promotion. Yeah. Let's go to dinner.
Yeah.
You You're feeling sad. Hey, let's go grab a bite to eat. Everything is centered around food, like feasts and let's like holiday parties, food. Like food is everywhere. Food is ingrained and food is a reward system. We did good in school. What'd you get?
Yeah.
Pizza party.
Right. Exactly. And, and it's funny because it's just something I had developed. It was, I guess for lack of a better word, it was like an addiction or at least an unhealthy relationship, like you mentioned, that I had with it. And so that was just my way to work out of it.
That's a good way to like get over instant gratification as well, right? Like I want this. And I think that's a lot of the issues we have in life. Everything is available now.
Right. Oh, right.
You want coffee, you can go get it now.
Yeah.
You want sugar, you can get it now.
You don't have to go. They'll bring it to you.
Yeah. But I can order food right now. By the end of our episode recording, it'd be at a door.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to do anything. Yeah. And I feel like that's a good way to kind of put that off of like, man, I want this, but I can't have it right now. Let me put it off for Sunday. And if I still want it on Sunday, that's the day I've allocated that I can do that. Yeah. And the more you do that, I feel like the less you'll be like, well, I don't even need it anymore. Like,
yeah, right. You get busy and life
life gets in the way.
Yeah.
When did you get into jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so I got into jiu-jitsu coming right out of COVID and that is one,
another COVID grappler.
Another COVID grappler.
You fuckers are, you guys are dangerous. That's all you had at that time.
Exactly. Well, it was funny because I was, obviously I was working. I did a lot of working out at home, and biking. I did a lot of biking through COVID. But I've never enjoyed going to the gym. And so like just going to the gym, working out, lifting weights, doing the machines, whatever, just has never been a good thing for me. But I knew I needed some kind of activity that kept me going. And for a long time, for a couple of years, I was doing a ton of biking. The problem with biking, especially in Pittsburgh, it's not a year-round sport. Like, I mean, there are some people like driving.
Go to North Park. They'll tell you different. It's
right,
like
exactly.
Blizzard, they're still biking. I fucking hate it.
For me, it is not a year-round sport because it is freezing cold.
It's 5 a.m. and 10 degrees. Why are you biking?
Yeah. And even in the summer, you get like 85 degrees outside. It's like, that's just too hot.
Yeah, what's your prime biking temp?
Yeah, about 65. It's
solid. That's good.
I can bike all day at 65 degrees. So that was interfering. Like, so I couldn't bike. So I was looking for something I could do consistently. And, it's funny because I was listening to a Jocko Willing podcast, and he was talking about doing jiu-jitsu. And I was like,
Jocko.
Well, yeah. I was like, I'm going to.
Like
exactly. That was a good impression.
You're welcome.
I was like, all right, I'm going to go try that out. And I was like, this is great because there's this gym called Stout. It's like 5 minutes from my house. And so I finally one day I was like, I'm going to do it. It was January 2021. I drive there, nothing there. And wow, they had moved to Zealy a couple months earlier, but like Google Maps hadn't updated their location yet. So I'm like, where the heck? And so
did you go when it was in Cranberry?
Well, that's where I tried to go, but they had moved.
I went there a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then they went to the Zealy location. Yeah. That's funny.
So then I showed up to Zealy. They like, you get 3 trial classes. I did one class, and I was like, I went and talked to, I think it was Andy working the front desk. I was like, yeah, I want to sign up for the year. And he's like, well, you got 2 trial classes left. I was like, nope.
Sign me up.
I was like, I'm in. This is it. This was great. And then I spent 6 months just getting destroyed. It was just like, and I spent 6 months like sore the entire time. Just, because at the time I'm 40, I was, 47 years old. And
so you started at 47.
Yeah. So
see, like I kind of beat myself up because I started about 3.5, 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Probably right at the same time. And I'm like, dude, I started too late. Like I see these young kids, they're blue belts or purple belts, and I'm like, I've been a blue belt for a year and a half.
Right.
Well, no, 2 years. Holy fuck! I'm a 2-year blue belt with no tape. In my defense, March 17th, I destroyed my knee. But yeah, like I see these kids are getting after, and I'm like, man, like, if I go in there, it's about to be tough. It's about to be tough.
Yeah.
But that's that. Don't avoid hard, right?
Right. Exactly. And it was tough, but it was. You just, that's how you learn. I
trial by fire, baby.
Yeah. I remember when the concept of finally like getting frames in and protecting yourself with frames finally clicked in my head of, like 2 months in. And I was like, oh, this is a lot better.
Yeah, you're not getting smashed.
Yeah,
now you're like minimizing smash.
Exactly. So.
And so what belt are you now? Not that it matters. But
I'm a blue belt.
Blue
still.
belt?
Yeah. So that's
like blue belt is so interesting to me because you can have a blue belt like me who's like, he's just big and strong. Jiu-jitsu, whatever. Yeah. And then you can have a blue belt who just, you're like, why are you a blue belt? They're keeping him at blue. Like you make all the excuses. Yeah. They're keeping him at blue belt because they want him to just smash through the competition. Like, like it starts to get so the disparity so big there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the blue belt I think is probably one of the bigger areas where there's a
lot of hiding going on.
Yeah,
a lot of hiding. So then you get into, how do you get into, I've heard a rumor that in the North, there's this group of seasoned individuals.
Yes. The Team Krusty.
Team Krusties.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to Team Krusties. I think it's our fearless leader, John Swisher.
That's Scott's like every time he's like the Krusties. I'm like, who are these fucking people? And then he's like, oh, they're just like, it's a group up there. And I'm like.
So yeah, there's a few, hard, fast requirements to be in the Krusties is you have to be old. So you have to be, there is some debate whether you have to be over 35 or over 40. I'm more of a purist. I believe you have to be over 40, although they do occasionally make exceptions.
9 years to go.
Exactly. And then you have to be a blue belt. And really it's just a group of, we have,
blue belt or above or just
blue belt? Blue
okay.
belt or above. Blue belt or above. But it's and then our sole activity is we get together on Sunday mornings up in Zealy at 9:00, and it's just those are the only people that are allowed to roll at 9:00 on Sunday morning. And it's not
after the WD-40s apply.
Exact. Well, that's just it. It's
I just put a target on my back with all these fucking dudes gonna roll. Hey, Ish, come up. We have an exception for you.
But no, I mean, and it's like we're all in that same, part of life, and so it's a great time. You're rolling with guys. I mean, I love rolling with the younger guys, and I have no problem with that. But it is nice to go some, once a week. You have a roll where it's just all guys that are, your age and
close to retirement.
Close to retirement.
I'm talking too much shit for someone who hasn't trained since March. So, no, that's cool to me. He's always talk about it, and I'm like, who is like? So I met another Krusty. Look at that.
Exactly. Yeah,
we're
out there.
Like, where did the name come from? Did he tell you the history of like the name? Or?
I don't. I mean, I know if you look at I'm wearing one of the sweatshirts here. It's a tie into Krusty the Clown.
Yeah.
But the original, it existed long before I was involved in it, so I don't know the true history. I'll have to find that out from John one day.
That's cool. Yeah. Tell John jump on the podcast.
Yeah.
I got some shit to talk.
Exactly.
So this podcast is going to be called Talking That Ish, because I talk a lot of shit, like, and it's all playful banter, but I was like, man, I want to hear about people's stories. Like, I don't want it to be like every other podcast where we're just here brain rotting. Like, I want to hear people's stories, and if it's Talking That Ish, not the same.
Well, we have, I mean, we talk a lot of shit with our
you have to
in between in the group as well.
You have to. How else are you going to inspire?
Exactly.
I call it inspiring the role.
Exactly. Getting people to show up. You gotta.
Sunday, you meet 9 a.m. Jocko, dude. I got his voice down.
You do.
How do you think that health journey, that weight loss journey, and then incorporating jiu-jitsu, like how has that helped your entrepreneur mindset?
Sure.
If you will. Like, do you think those correlate? Being healthier, having a fitness, because jiu-jitsu is very fitness heavy. How has that pushed your mindset in the business world?
So I think the tie in there is, once again, just learning to embrace that struggle. I mean, you're always, you can't hide in jiu-jitsu, especially if you go to like the open mats and stuff. I mean, if you just show up to the classes, you can kind of hide. But if you're going to open mat and rolling with anybody who will roll with you, you're gonna do, you're gonna be struggling out there. And in jiu-jitsu, you learn things that work. It's kind of funny. You'll do stuff and it'll work for a while, but then everybody gets wise to what you're doing, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And so now you got to figure out something else, or you'll start rolling with higher level people who are just better, and they're just beating you up. And now you got to think, okay, how do I adapt? How do I change? And so that whole mindset is, you can apply that in business as well. You know, it's, you know, an interesting, like on the IT business coming out of COVID, the whole way people work and the way we marketed to people didn't work anymore. And, you know, it's, in coming into this year, we are having a real struggle with getting new business, like even being able to find new business and talk to business. Not that there wasn't business out there, but the way we were doing it just wasn't working. And so, you know, I had to say, okay, well, I need to learn some new things. We need to change this up. We need to try some new things and get better at what we're doing, to generate new business. And, you know, so we made some pretty drastic changes to things earlier in this year, and now coming into the fall, our like pipeline for new business is more full than it's probably ever been. But you know, coming into the beginning of the year, like literally it was crickets. We had a good, you know, core business, existing customers, that was all going great. But you know, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so we had that area where it's just like, okay. And when I looked at it, and once again, it's that same thing. You have to have a hard conversation with yourself saying, hey, you know, you got to check your ego. This is not what you know doesn't work anymore. So you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to try new things. And so it was identifying those things, trying them. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. We finally found some things that worked for us, and now we're getting those new leads. We're meeting with people. We're getting back on track as far as new business goes. And so jiu-jitsu is the same way. It's
I try to push people to jiu-jitsu and fitness because those are but those are good places for you to build discipline, build accountability, right? Like you're accountable to yourself. You have to be accountable to yourself. You have to wake up. Yeah. You have to get there. Yeah. You have to not just show up. There's this conversation I just had with someone about just show up, right? And oftentimes we hear that, just show up. And showing up is good. Yeah. Right. But if I just show up every day, right, like there has to be something.
Well, that's step one. Yeah.
That's step one, right?
It's not
like,
the final step. Yeah.
We hear a lot of times like, oh, just show up. Yeah. Like I get the premise. And I was guilty of that, right? I would always tell people just get there, right? Because what we're trying to do is inspire a movement, inspire motion, inspire this journey. Yeah. But like there has to be the next step, right? You have to show up. And I'm talking to people who are in the top 1% of like, or people who want to be there, right? If you want to be the Jordan of your industry, the Kobe of your industry, the Steve Jobs of your industry, showing up, that's what everyone else is doing. Like you have to show up and then fucking give everything every day. And there's going to be days where you don't, where showing up going through the motions is important. But like just showing up, if you want to be the best version of yourself, showing up is bare minimum. That's like, you showed up. Now what? Yeah.
Well, just like, and even in jiu-jitsu, even when you're rolling, like to me, it's been real helpful. Always knowing what my goal is for a role, you know, and say, okay, this role I'm working on. And it's not even something like I'll even typically tell my partner, because telling your partner kind of affects the role because they
become mindful of it.
Yeah. And so, but I'll be like, all right, I'm just gonna work on defense this round, or you know, I really want to work on this one attack, so I'm just gonna try and get to this position so I can do this attack. And you know, and just working with a purpose I feel like has really helped my jiu-jitsu game, and then it also has helped in business. Once again, showing up to work. All right, what is my purpose today? What am I trying to get done? There's certain things that I have to do, which, okay, those are easy. I know I have to get this report out. I know I have to, you know, answer this email. But then, okay, there's that time in the day where you're not scheduled for something specifically. All right, so what's my purpose? What am I working on? What am I going to do during that time? So, because it's easy to just, you know, waste a whole day, waste half a day.
I become huge on the reminders on iPhone. Yeah. And then you know how they have the exclamation 1, 2, 3. It's like priority. Like no exclamation mark is like just things that need done. That'd be cool if I get done. And then based on how many exclamations is the higher priority. And yeah, I've made my time more intentional.
Sure.
Right? Because like I think I was talking to Tanner about jiu-jitsu, and I would go to open mats and I would just roll like everyone else. And like I found myself like, why am I not getting better at jiu-jitsu? Which everyone thinks about. Like everyone's like, why am I not getting better? And then Mike looks at me, he's like, when you walked in the first day, like would you kill that dude? I'm like, oh, I'd murder him. Yeah. Like day and night. Right. He's like, so you're improving. But we all get stuck in this, why am I not getting better? And Tanner was like, well, like make goals for your roles. Like what do you want to work on? So I started, like, Americanas were like my thing. I don't know why. Because I'm a bigger dude. I can brute force your arm there. Yeah. So I started doing this Americana, Kimura. I don't know what you would call that. Like not transition, but like where like one fed off the other.
Attack.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, that's what I'm going to drill for this week. Yeah. That's what I'm drilling. No matter what position I'm in, I'm going to try to. Yeah. And I found myself getting so much better at Americanas and Kimuras because that was my goal.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And like and so I stared doing that with everything I do. And like, I pull from jiu-jitsu, I pull from the gym. I'm like, okay, I sit before the week. I'll sit, plan out my gym routine for the week, what my warm-up's going to be, what my working sets are going to be. Like we do this with gym.
Right.
But we don't do this with life. We don't do this with business. Yeah. Like, but you notice the people who are successful in these things, that's what they do. They sit down and like, this week, what am I going to focus on for work or my business? Oh, I want to push branding, or I want to push this new extension of our IT business that we're like. We don't do that with our business. Right. I wasn't doing that with the podcast.
Yeah, right. No, and that's important. You got to do that.
Yeah,
you got to plan it out. You got to work in. And it's funny because on the IT side, I have 12 people now on the team that are working on the IT side, and I'll tell them, hey, look, I mean, we obviously have systems that we work in, but inside of all those systems, like our ticketing system and our management systems and stuff, there's still got to be something that you're using to manage yourself and manage your business, or manage what you're doing inside the business. And there's a ton of tools on there. You talk about using like the Simple Reminders app, and I always tell people, it doesn't matter to me what tool you use. You have to be using a tool, and you have to have a system. And the biggest thing is the consistency of consistently using that system. And what's crazy is, and it's just like, I think it's just part of being human, you can get real consistent. You can be doing it real well. And then all of a sudden you'll wake up one day and you'll realize, you know what, I've stopped doing X, and so now you have to reset and say, okay, I'm going to get back to that. And I'm going to, and so it's a constant iteration, constant learning process where you're doing it. You kind of go up, you kind of drip off. And I think with jiu-jitsu, it's the same kind of way. It's not a straight uphill climb. You go up, you drop off a little bit, you have to reassess, then you go back up. And that's just life. And that's just,
and I was just saying, that's life. If you look at the stock market, how does the stocks look? We feel like stocks are dropping. Yeah. But if you take a step back and look at like the 5 years, it's up, down, up, down, up, down, but the constant graph is going up in weight loss, right? Yep. Everyone wants to lose weight. They drop, and then they gain. And they're like, I gained 2 pounds. So how did I gain 2 pounds? And it's like, well, there's water weight, there's salt retention, there's all this stuff. But if you take a step back and look at the overall, you're dropping. You're dropping your weight. Your overall goal is working. Yeah. And like, I think we get so close to what we're doing that we don't step back and look at like, okay, overall, how is my, like, let me judge my performance. Yeah. And jiu-jitsu is the same way, business the same way, sales, right? Yeah. You have $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, $7,000 a month. We lost sales this month. Like, what's going on? Which probably smart to assess. Right. But then the next month you're back to 11 and 12, and then you step back and you're like, dude, I was making $3,000 a month when I started this business. I'm complaining at 7,000. Yeah. When most of my months are averaging 15.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is that intentionality, is to make sure you just don't get complacent and that you're looking intentionally at what you're doing, and always assessing and being willing to make those hard assessments and admit when something's not working anymore and saying, okay, I need to make a change here. This isn't working. So, and jiu-jitsu, going back to that helps you with that, because if something ain't working, you're going to know about it
immediately
as soon as you step on the mat.
It's like, why did I get choked out? That didn't work.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to talk about is your other company, your other venture, right? Because now we've talked about health and fitness and business, and you and your family started How do you pronounce it?
Paratus.
Paratus.
Which is Latin for ready. So Paratus.
Stay Paratus.
Yeah, exactly.
I stay Paratus,
Yeah.
bro. No, so how did Paratus come about? Like, was that something that stemmed off of the jiu-jitsu thing, like self-defense and
Yeah,
or-
so Paratus is it's called Paratus Self-Defense is actually the full name of it. And really what we are is a distributor for the Berna line of self-defense products, which is a air-powered launcher. Think of it like a modified paintball gun. It's kind of crazy. I kind of come full circle unintentionally. Where it uses a CO2 cartridge to fire a hard plastic round or a pepper ball round that hits you and breaks open and covers you in pepper spray. And it's used for less lethal self-defense. And it was kind of funny. Once again, it's like always looking for opportunity. I actually started as a user of their product. I have a concealed carry permit, done concealed carry for years. But I was involved up in Cranberry with a minor road rage incident where a guy thought I should stop and let him merge in out of the turning lane. And, I disagreed. And so I kept going at the next stoplight. He pulled up and rolled his window down, started yelling at me, saying I was lucky he didn't have his gun on him because he'd shoot me. And and my wife was
people.
Yeah, my wife was in the car with me, and it didn't escalate any further past that. But it forced me to think like, okay, if he'd gotten out of his car and he'd come at me, what would I have done? And even with carrying even as concealed carry, it's like in a situation like that, am I really going to pull a gun and shoot someone dead? Like because they're mad about a car incident, and the problem with concealed carry is when you pull that weapon, like you're now committed, like
you introduced the gun.
You've escalated this to deadly force, and you're really left with almost no options at that point. And so that's when I started looking for another solution, and that's when I found Berna and was like, this is great because it's not gonna kill them, but it's definitely gonna make them think about what they want to do next. If you hit them with either a hard kinetic round, which is hard plastic round the size of a paintball, that's just it's gonna break the skin, it's gonna leave a welt, it's gonna bruise, or hit them with a pepper spray round, which is gonna distract them, irritate, cause irritation, all that. And so it allows you, it gives you that second level there, and so we bought them and started, carrying them, and they worked well. They're easy to use. I just keep one like under the seat of my car. You don't have to have any permits for them. You don't have to have a permit to carry them. You don't have to buy them. As long as you're over 18, you can buy them. And so that seemed to work well. And then so after a few months later, I saw they sent out like their promotional emails, and they sent out an email talking about distributorships. And so I looked into that and realized you could become a distributor where you could sell the products. My wife, Jennifer, who was kind of another little side. She's had her own business for years. I've had my own business, but they've been separate. And this was an opportunity. If we started this, we could work on something together. And plus, she also does side gigs for private security. It's just one of the things she likes to do.
Oh, shit.
And so
those arguments are interesting.
Yeah. So she she can conceal carry and all that, but at the same time, a lot of situations where she's doing private security, like you just don't, even if you have that concealed carry on you, you don't want to have to use it. Especially because, and her concern is she'll do private security in areas where there's big events. And she's like, if I pull a gun out, and I start shooting, I now have to be concerned about what I'm hitting beside the person, behind the person, all this kind of
every
stuff.
round. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the Berna is a great option for her because once again, if she misses and hits someone with a less lethal round, okay, that's bad, but it's not life-changing.
As bad, yeah.
And so that was, and so all those things kind of came together, and, we decided that we wanted to start stuff. And plus, there's a lot of people out there that just aren't comfortable carrying a firearm. And so this is a great option for them to have that, self-defense capability.
Now, is there any training involved when you purchase the Burnout, do they offer training courses on how to utilize it, where to utilize it, the concerns of utilizing? Because as a cop, I looked at this and I started wondering, like, man, like if someone came, like I go to a call, dude gets shot, he comes up and I have to assess the totality, and he's like, I thought he pulled a gun on me, and you pulled out a pepper ball gun, because they have a black one, which I don't agree with. Like, you pull out an all black gun looking thing, someone can be justified in shooting you. Like, as a cop, you see people pull out cell phones and do this manner, and it's justified. Now it's we call that lawful but awful, right? But there are certain circumstances, like, you just don't know distance or whatever. You do that motion. Why would you do that motion with a cell phone? You wanted me to believe you had a firearm, right? But like in this case, it would be kind of like, oh man, they pulled out. Like, I would be distraught if you pulled out a pepper ball gun on me, right? And I thought you pulled a gun on me. But like, I can see the application in the civilian world, but I feel like there needs to be a lot of training involved with that.
Yeah, well, just like anything, training is important. So like my vision for where I want to take Paratus is to incorporate the training part of that. So right now we're just doing like online sales and direct sales and that kind of stuff, which doesn't give you a whole lot of opportunity for training. But what we're working towards is we're hopefully here within a short period of time, we'll have a location where we're a retail location, and part of that retail location, and this is how Berna sets them. If you set up a retail location, they work with you on this to help that, because that's what they want to incorporate too. Is the front half of the space is just a little sales area, but then the back half or back 3/4 is a training area where you can do classes. You can come in, just train the gun and get instruction. And they even provide you with, Berna has instruction, training classes like you can take to become an instructor. And then you instruct people on how to use them, when to use them, all that kind of stuff. So that's where we're looking to take that business, is to have that facility so we can do that kind of training, because it is important. Because you have to know, when to use it and when to not use it,
and where to use it, right? If I pull it out, shoot, like, because I'm thinking of like our less lethal shotguns, right? Like if I shoot you in the face, right, becomes lethal very fast. Sure. Yeah. If I shoot you in the jewels, right, that could be deadly force, because of the damage that could incur. Right. If I shoot you in the thigh, it's probably a good spot to hit you. Right. Have you looked into like maybe starting like a YouTube channel and then like filming these, like, until you're able to set up that hands-on training? I think it'd be very beneficial. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, we haven't really looked at that too hard at this point, but that would be a good idea. And for Paratus, are you going to implement like other products and services, or are you focusing on is it Berna? Berna, yeah. Is that your primary? That's what focus? For at least to start. That's our primary focus, is the Berna products. I mean, we went with a name that's like more generic of a name, so that we have that opportunity to kind of incorporate other products over time if we want to. But I feel like we need to stay focused on this and get this part up and running, and then we can see where it goes. So, and what's your goal with Paratus and Berna? Like, where do you envision that going in the next 5 years? That's something you said you were a user before you decided to become a distributor. Where do you see that going in the next couple of years? I mean, I see it going as where we would have, multiple of these retail locations and retail/training locations, whether we have multiple in Pittsburgh or multiple, in other areas around, like maybe one in Cleveland, one in Pittsburgh, and that, and just kind of building that business to that point, where we can, and I like when all the businesses I've learned with business, like I like to work. My goal is to get a business to the point where I could sell it if I wanted to. Like, it has enough value, intrinsic value, that I could sell it, or I can continue to run it as, and run it myself. And, that kind of is a whole different discussion going on, like
being self-employed or owning a business. But so that's where I would look to build it, to have a business that is either running well and I'm comfortable running it myself, or having being able to sell it and move on to something else. So.
And this is something you and your wife do together?
Yeah.
How cool is that? Is that like to have a business with your family? Do you find that, hopefully she's not listening, but do you find that like better, or do you find like the business you run and then she runs hers, and you guys kind of have your own thing you're doing? Yeah.
Well, for the last, we've been married for 27 years now. And so
Congrats.
Thank you.
What's the secret? Everyone's what's the secret?
The secret is being same as everything else. Just keep going.
Keep working.
Keep working. And
easy.
Yep. And that's, but no, it's, we've always, she's had her own, she was in real estate. She doesn't do real estate anymore, but she did real estate for years. Then she got involved with placing international students in homestay programs here in the U.S. And that kind of business has kind of over time morphed into doing more online training or online schooling with international students. So she's a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah,
as well.
Now she does security stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's a joke in our family that my wife collects jobs like some people collect, like different types of
cards and trinkets.
Yeah, right. She collects jobs. So, but and it's funny because we're both serial entrepreneurs. When it comes to business and things, we're both very similar, which when you have very similar people, it can be hard for them to mesh and work well together, because we both have our opinions, and we both, and so I would say when we were younger, working together would not have been a good idea. And so we never did. But now that, we're older, wiser, maybe
more mature,
maybe, we decided that this would kind of be an interesting thing to do together. So, that's, we're still figuring all that out, how that works.
That's why the marriage works. Exactly. We're still figuring it out.
Exactly.
Everything's a constant work in progress.
It's a constant work in progress.
It's funny because when I talk to people who are like in business with their wives, it's always like, it's like they're like, we're bumping heads, bumping heads, or it's like the opposite of like, oh, it just meshed perfectly. Yeah. But both are still successful in moving. Right. Right. And it's like, because you have your relationship before the business. Yeah. Like some people go business and then relationship. That's
well, it's funny because working with family, I've worked with family my whole life. In fact, I have 3 family members that work with me in my IT business. So a sister and then 2 nephews that work with me in my IT business. So there's never, so I'm very comfortable working with those dynamics, and there's a lot of good and a little bit of bad, but a lot of good with that, and I enjoy that, and really very happy for those opportunities. It's just it is different though when it's your wife. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you can't. You're never right.
Yeah, right.
I always you always hear don't mix business and family, but like my whole goal is to build a business that I can sustain my family, bring my family in, because at the end of the day, it's your family, right? Like a business part and family. There's the like good family, bad family, whatever. But if you can cultivate a great relationship with your family, why not be in business with your family? Yeah. Right. Like they're the closest to you. Yeah. They're going to have your best intentions, given that you guys have a great relationship. Right. Like I would rather be in a business with my family, who I know is not going to, and this is just generally speaking, because we all have the toxic family. We've all heard about it, but like, they're not going to try and like sell you out or take your shares or undermine you. Like you're going to bump heads, but like if there's anyone to go into business with, I feel like best opportunity would be with your family.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. Like I said, and it's been great. Working with my sister and my 2 nephews, and they both, my sister's been working in the business for 18 years. My one nephew's both of them have been working right around 10 years for me now. They both worked. My one nephew started working for me right out of high school, Marshall, and then Brad started working for me not long after he got out of college. So, they've, and it's been great. And they're some of the best relationships I have, and it's, because of that. And so, and it's really, it's never, and it's funny because it's never really been much of a struggle with me for like working with family. And my dad was a great example of that. I mean, like I said, growing up working in his business, it was always a very good relationships there. There wasn't, that butting heads of fighting, none of that really ever really happened in the businesses when I was growing up. So I think that was a great example, a great role model for me. So
yeah, if he's a good role model in your life, probably going to be a good role model in business.
Yeah. So
what does extreme ownership mean to you? When I mention that, like, we mentioned Jocko and he's huge. You ever read the book?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you're probably gonna hit the definition. But like, what does that mean to you to have extreme ownership?
So it's interesting because there's the book Extreme Ownership, and probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was really looking, like, the business was growing, but I really wanted to take that business to the next level, which meant, like, 5, 6 years ago, I was still, like, the business was growing, we had people there, but if I took time off, the business just kind of stopped. Like, it could survive for a few weeks, but it wasn't thriving and growing on its own. And so that's when I was like, okay, to get to the next step, I want to build this business so that it could exist without me. And about that time is when I read the Extreme Ownership book that Jocko put out, where it talks about on the team, everyone on your team is a leader, whether they're leading just themselves or they're leading a small team inside of your team, or they're leading, the team itself. Everyone is a leader. And so I started looking at everyone on our team as a leader. And so it's like, okay, well, what are leadership capabilities? Well, first thing is, a leader has authority. So if you really want extreme ownership in your company, you have to be willing to give up your authority and give that authority to other people in your company, which can be a lot harder said than done. And
especially when it's your business.
Exactly.
Like, you know where you want it to go.
Right.
Can you trust that they do?
Right. And but it's a lot more. And so once you give up that authority, it's like, okay, instead of me telling you this is how I want things done, then it becomes my goal as a leader is to tell you what the goal is and to communicate that goal to you. Say, hey, this is where I want to take the business. This is what the business needs to be doing. And then let them really make their own plans and implement their own plans, even if you look at it and be like, oh man, I wouldn't do it that way, and so that brings in that whole thing about ego. When you're giving that authority and giving up that authority, you're also giving up that ego of, well, I know the best way to do it, and this is my business, and I can't afford to have you screw this up. And so it's giving them that authority to say, okay, you are in charge of what you've been, you're not in charge of everything, but what you're in charge, what I've given you in charge of, I really have made you in charge of it and allow you to do this. And so we really focused on, building a system, building a company where people can have that authority inside, that they go out and they're making these decisions. And the fact of the matter is, they're better at making the decisions than I am, because they're the ones dealing directly with the customer and seeing what the problems are. And that doesn't, and like anything else, doesn't mean we don't correct, or if there's something goes wrong, we don't assess and say, hey, let's see how we can do it better next time. But you have to give them that ability, or that extreme ownership, to go out and be able to implement their own plans and make their own decisions. And it's kind of interesting, as an IT company, we have like 70 companies. It's over 70 companies that are under management with us, which means we take care of all their IT needs for their company. And these are companies that range in size from 2 to 3 people, or 150, 175 people in the company or the organization. So some real large ones, some real small ones. But being in IT, because we're involved in everything, but we're kind of in the background, you get a real good look at it inside how other companies operate and what's good and what's bad on them. And I've learned a couple lessons there. One, I've learned that a company only grows to the size of its leadership. And there's companies that we've dealt with being in business now for 19 years. There's companies we've dealt with for 15, 16, 17 years. And what's interesting is some of those companies have grown over time and others have always stayed just about the same. And when you look at them, it's because that's the level of their leadership. Like their leadership hasn't figured out how to, and maybe they're happy with where they're at, but a lot of times I think it's more that they just haven't figured out how to give up that authority to let the business grow, without them having to control every micromanage it.
But yeah, I think a very important thing in developing someone is accountability, right? If you're always over their shoulder, you're not allowing them to step into accountability, right? Their decisions carry no weight because it falls on you. Right. But if you release this authority and you allow your employees to step into accountability, it creates their ownership in the company, right? Because now they feel like they are a part of this rather than a part of it.
Right. Exactly.
Like my decision is going to affect this directly rather than my decision, whatever. If he doesn't like it, he's going to change it anyway. Like it creates accountability.
Yeah.
And the more leaders you have, the bigger your business is going to be because everyone is trying to push the business rather than the person at the top.
And the flip side of that is understanding from my point of view, as I give people that accountability and give that people, the thing, and one of Jocko's terms, I think he talks about in this book, if not one of his other books, where he says there are no bad teams, there's only bad leaders. And because even though I'm giving up that authority, at the end of the day, it's still my responsibility. Now, a lot of people take that because it's my responsibility. That means I have to micromanage. I have to make sure there's never any mistakes. What I take it to mean, and what I think Jocko is saying there, is that it is my job. If they go out and they're not getting the job done, it's because I haven't properly trained them. I haven't properly given them the vision. I haven't all those things haven't been done properly. So we've gotten the bad results. So when I have a tech go out on site or a project lead that's leading a project and the thing goes off the rails and it doesn't come out the way we wanted it to, or there's problems, it's like, okay, well then I have to look at myself and say, okay, what could I have done better to resolve that issue? And the amazing thing is once you start doing that, you'll start seeing that reflected in the leaders below you. Because in our organization, we're not super huge, but we do have people that are only responsible for themselves. We do have people that are responsible for 3 or 4 people, and then people, I'm responsible for everyone. But you'll see that kicking up from below. Someone, so-and-so was on site and this thing kind of went sideways, but I realized it was because I hadn't told them everything they needed to know, or I hadn't given them the proper tools to get it done. And so you'll see that extreme ownership taking place. And it's like, okay, great. That happened. How can we improve this for next time? And let's go after it and get after it now.
And that's when extreme ownership works the best.
Right.
When other people start to push that, right? And I see that in policing too. Our chief actually pushed this book, Extreme Ownership, to all the sergeants, all the administration. Yeah. He wanted everyone to read it. And then he sent an email out for us to kind of read it as well. And that's when I actually read the book, and I'm like, man, like I'm responsible for this department, right? I take in that I'm a patrolman, dude. Yeah. But I take I have so much stake in this because I truly want the department as a whole to grow and to be better. So as one of I'm a firearms instructor, defensive tactics instructor. I take it upon myself, to push this department, right? Like because I want what's best. If everyone encompasses that, and that's the extreme. Right. If everyone encompasses that, you're only going to be better. Yeah. Because you go on a call and then something happens, like I, as an instructor, should have prepared you better. Yeah. Exactly. And then he comes back, he's like, no, I had questions and I didn't ask them. I should have asked you these questions. Now we start to create a positive environment for learning that facilitates growth. Yep. And if you can apply that in business and jiu-jitsu, you're getting ready for a competition and you don't perform best and you're like, man, that was on me. And your coach is like, nah, man, I should have prepared you. Now you guys are facilitating growth. You're having these important conversations.
Exactly. And you're not blaming each other and saying it's your fault. It's on you.
You didn't prepare me.
Right.
Because then you get him going, no, you didn't do what I told you.
Right.
And now you're hitting heads and you're not growing.
No.
You're digressing. You're going backwards. No. What advice would you give people having issues with releasing this authority? And they're like, man, like this is my baby. This is my business. Like, what did you do to make it easier for you to kind of trust the people, I don't want to say below you, but the people responsible for your business?
Well, once again, it was that intentionality. I wanted to build a business where, you know, for the first 10 years of the business or whatever, it was fine that I was involved in every part of it and everything. But like anything after time, that started to wear on me. That started to be a grind. You know, I was like, this is, you know, I can't go on vacation, you know, like without things blowing up and, you know, a bunch of problems happening. And now when I come back from vacation, I'm like, why did I even go on vacation? There's so much stuff I have to deal with. So, you know, you have to have that desire first of all, you have to have the desire to let go. And then the second is like, you know, what we did when I went in and introduced that to the company is, you know, I read the book, I learned it, I started applying the principles myself, but then I introduced it to our team and said, hey, here's the book. And we actually did a book club with the, you know,
that's awesome.
So we did it like every Thursday morning. We had like a half hour where we'd go through a chapter of the book, and then we would talk about it, bring feedback on it, kind of talk about it. And then, you know, I just made sure that as I was doing that I would just force myself. And it was hard at first to say, okay, I'm handing off this project. I'm just, if I don't think something's going in the right direction, I'm just going to ask questions and not ask questions that are like, why did you do something so stupid? You know, like, but like
structure your questions appropriately.
Right. So ask honest questions like, hey, I see you're scheduling only one tech to go on site for this project. Do you think he's going to be able to get it all done in the time if there's only one tech? And then listen to the answers. And what's amazing is like, sometimes you get the answer back, oh yeah, no, he's going to get it all done because we're doing some of this stuff ahead of time. And it's like, oh, okay, you're thinking about it. Other times they'll look at once, just even asking the question will be like, no, you know what? You're right. That's probably not enough. You know, I probably should put 2 techs on that. And, you know, so just little things like that, you know, trying to be transparent and, you know, truly delegating that authority. And then also in the book, like I said, going through the book, help them with the training, help them understand where I wanted to take the company, what I was going through. And then we actually, Jocko has a company called Echelon Front that does training. We sent everybody in our company has gone to, except, well, we have a couple guys that are less than 6 months with us. They haven't gone yet, but everyone else has gone through that Echelon, have gone and taken Echelon Front training.
We do that. It's like the online stuff you tune into.
Well, yeah, but we've gone to their actual events.
Ones. Yeah, he has like the online ones that are our administration pushes down, and you just register for it.
Yep.
I take advantage of all that stuff, man, because like I love learning. I love to learn. That's why I love having these conversations because, you know, hearing how you apply stuff to your business, I can apply to myself and my life and my business too. So I take it's always an opportunity when you can learn from someone else who's proven to be doing it, right? How long have you been in business?
19 years with the IT stuff.
Yeah. So. This podcast is a year old. Yeah. a lot of learning to be done, but no, that's good stuff.
The other thing too that I learned too is that holding accountable. You know, we've had a couple instances where we've ended up having to let people go because we've made every effort to work with them to say, hey, you need to be doing this. This is what is expected of you. We provide the training, things like that, but they're still not getting the job done. And then just having to tell them, hey, look, you're just, you know, you're holding the team back in essence. And, you know, we've got to move on. And it's funny because the team responds really well to that because when it's done right, it kind of becomes apparent by the time we make that decision, everybody knows that person isn't stepping up to the plate. And so when they move on, people are like, yeah, they made the right move there because everyone's taking extreme ownership and they see one person that just isn't doing it, you know? And so it's like, okay, yeah, but if you don't have that accountability, if you're not willing to make those hard decisions when they need to be made, people are like, well, why am I doing all this when so-and-so over here is not being held to the same standard?
And doubt starts creeping in. I highly advise everyone to read Extreme Ownership. Like you can apply. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You could be, and not to knock it, but you can be working line cook at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like if you embody extreme ownership,
you won't be working. You won't be working line cook for very long.
You won't. Not only that, because but that whole process improves. People watch people, man. How you move and what you do, what you say. Like people watch that, and they feed off that. If you're miserable, and you hate your life, and you're like, fuck this McDonald's shit, like that bleeds. But if you're one thing, I was in the drive-thru with my daughter. She wanted McDonald's. Yeah, I gave her McDonald's. And the person at the window, she was like high energy. She was like, loving it, like just saying where's the McDonald's. She was hitting all the McDonald's lines, and her energy, like I wanted to sit her down on the podcast because the whole premise is like, what is this passion that you have and why? Yeah. Like I feed off that, dude. And like I left that drive-thru smiling, and my daughter looks at me. She's like, I like her. She was so nice. She was so cool. And it's like, why? Like, and then you see other people in corporate worlds doing quote unquote big things, and they're just walking around miserable. Yeah. And you don't want to be around those people. Yeah. It's like you feed off that energy, and it's like extreme ownership builds that because you're taking accountability for everything you're doing. Yeah. And my mom always told me, like, you're not above anything. Like if you're cleaning toilets, those toilets are spotless. That's your passion. That's your pride. That's what you're taking, everything in. Yeah. So I've always implemented that in everything. My first job was Golden Corral, and I tell you what, I was the best cashier, the best cook, the best baker, because I fucking own it. Like my bread, perfect every time, because I took pride in what I'm doing, and I do that with everything. And people are like, man, your energy is, just take pride in what you're doing, no matter what it is. Like it could be the shittiest job, or maybe like patrol. You're directing traffic. Yeah. Cops hate directing traffic. Dude, I'm out there, I'm singing, I'm dancing, I'm talking to people through the window, and I'm gonna tell fuck off because I'm not letting the line go, whatever. And I'm just like, that's not nice, and then just keep going. Like just take pride in what you're doing, no matter what it is. Like, because that's gonna carry you through whatever it is you want to do. Yeah,
and it's a better way to live.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it translates to everything in your life, your relationships, your personal relationships, your romantic relationships, your friendships, your business. Like, it makes everything better if you just take ownership in what you're doing. Take pride. That's what.
For sure.
Replace ownership with pride. Extreme pride. Like, be proud of what you're doing, no matter what it is. And, dude, leaders, quote unquote, or bosses are going to look at them and be like, man, this dude moves well. I like what he's doing.
Being a boss for a long time, it sticks out, and you're like, yes, I want to help this person. I want this person because they're going to help me. Yeah. And the opposite attitude is like, okay,
avoid this dude. Why did I hire him? Why is he here? What after people listening to this episode, they hear your story, they hear what you're doing. What's one thing you want them to take away? Like when the episode shut off, they're driving in their car, they're going to work. What's one thing you want them to take with them and apply to their lives or whatever after listening to this episode?
That's a great question. I would like people to know that like consistency in everything you do is really the key. We talked about a little bit, maybe they'd say consistency with intentionality, consistency while being intentional about what you're doing is really, for me, has been the big key to my success that I've had. And that is that, yes, you're showing up, showing up is step one, but step two is having a purpose for why you're there and working towards that purpose. And don't worry about, you talked that earlier too about, which was great. You're so close to it. You can't, don't let the little ups and downs bother you. There's always going to be ups and downs. That's the struggle. That's what it's all about. But just know that if you show up consistently with purpose, that you're going to have success over a long period of time.
It's the dichotomy.
Yeah, exactly.
Another book by John.
Exactly.
It's the dichotomy of it all.
Yeah. Yep.
I like that. Yeah. Be consistent, but be intentional. Yeah. Right? Because if you go to the gym every day and you sit in the parking lot, right, you're consistent.
Right. Exactly.
You're not very intentional.
You're not very intentional.
So that's very good stuff right there. And where can people They love your story. They like what you're doing. Where can people learn more about you and follow you?
Yeah. So probably the best place is for the on the IT side, you can go to cranstonit.com. That's our website. We're actually talking about changing and things. There's going to be a bunch of social media stuff that we're doing that's going to be dropping. That's at Cranston IT on Instagram. We're finally going to do something with that. I'm a bit late, a bit old to the game there, but I got some good people I'm working with on that now. And then for the Paratus stuff, at Paratus SD for self-defense, at Paratus, Paratus SD, on Instagram, or paratusSD.com is our website. And like I said, hopefully there'll be news coming on that very soon as to a location where we're going there. So, and then
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I get excited with other people's success. So I'm excited for that. And if you like the podcast, obviously Relentless PRJCT, that's everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Trying to grow the YouTube channel. YouTube's a big thing. Like, people like video more.
Yeah.
It makes it more personable. People see your handsome face and they're like, I like him. I like Patrick. He's a nice guy. He's a crusty.
Yeah, exactly. I am a crusty.
So no, I appreciate you for jumping out and sharing your story.
Yeah,
man.
I appreciate you for having me. It was a great time.
Anytime, man. So Cranston IT and Paratus SD.
Yeah.
If you guys are interested in that, check them out. Go through their stuff, and if you need IT work, there you go. You got
exactly.
Your first IT guy on here. And the self-defense stuff, I'm a huge proponent of self-defense. So, train jiu-jitsu, get yourself some self-defense stuff. Train. Yeah, bro, I appreciate you for jumping on. This is the one with Patrick Cranston, and we are out. Later.